I feel so lucky to get to be here with you and have this conversation. And I feel so lucky that we met. Feels like this incredible moment in time. And just to share, with the people that'll listen to this video, kind of how I came to meet you and how you came into my life. I'm going to share a little bit about that. If that's okay.
Yes.
Is that all right? Okay.
Yes.
Just to contextualize.
All right.
So we met. Your son lives across the street from me in a bizarre act of what you call providence. Right?
I do call it providence.
And he says, "Come meet my dad, Bill Roberts. He's doing something, and maybe there's a connection." And I was at a point in my life where I was really reflecting on this concept of life stages, being 43, what's my passage at 43, and being the caretaker for my grandparents who are at the end of their lives in their late 80s. And watching their passage. And I remember not knowing what we would talk about, but I sort of brought all that across the street with me that day.
Yeah. And
we sat down and we started talking about the concept of passages and the questions I had about, how am I going to live my life?
Yeah.
I don't want to die like I just watched my grandfather die.
Yeah.
All those things.
Yeah.
And we sat down and it was like, that conversation has happened.
And that conversation happened. And you're right, I do use the word providence. I think this was meant to be.
Yeah.
So at that same moment, you were sort of processing your grandmother's situation, your grandfather's death. I was in fact reflecting on the fact that I had just led a rite of passage for elders. And it's something I'd thought about, I'd wondered about for years, because I had previously led other rites of passage, and I knew it was something we as a culture needed, and I had no way to get that message out. And so Providence intervened, you came across the street, I was there, and we got mutually excited.
Yeah. It felt like, you said this is 40 years in the making.
Yeah.
This concept of the Lost Rites.
That's right.
Ancient wisdom for the 21st century.
Yeah, I feel this very strongly. I feel that, and I am very concerned, by the way, about the 21st century, because in a certain sense we're getting more and more techniques in our life, and we're losing something in the meantime, and that is mysteries. Do you want me to go back and begin to tell you how I found this first Lost Rite? The first Lost Rite actually was the adolescent rite, which is frequently called the initiation to adulthood. I'd lived in Africa for a while. I'd heard about these things, but I thought it was just for African tribes. I had actually taught a course which dealt with these things, but I thought it was just like for people in other parts of the world. And then, as a minister of a church in Middletown, Connecticut, I had sort of the standard things that churches have for adolescents, a youth group, Sunday school, and a thing called the confirmation class. I tried 3 or 4 years, every year doing something different, because I could tell it didn't have a lot of substance. And the kids were good to come, they sort of liked me, but in fact I could tell I wasn't doing something of real value. One night, in the May of one year, I remember it so well, Saturday night, the kids, the 5 girls, there were no boys, 5 girls went to a movie called The Trial of Billy Jack. And when it was over, one of the girls came out, went to the phone booth. We didn't have cell phones then, this is 1974. Went to the phone booth, called me at home. I was asleep. She woke me up and said, "Bill, what we just saw in this movie is the real thing. What we do in our church is not the real thing."
And she had seen like an initiation rite.
She had seen an initiation
Like the movie played that out.
That's right.
Give an example of that for them.
Yeah. She saw it, she could feel its power.
Wow.
And the moment she said it, and I think this is a very wonderful moment, the moment she said it, I knew she was right. That initiation to adulthood is a real thing. It has a certain amount of substance and character. To use a word that I like to use, it's got soul. And what we did then is to begin to sort of study what were those rites about.
Because there's more than, the initiation to adulthood is like the first one.
That's the first one. And frankly, I thought for a long time it was the only one. So we studied it, we sort of knew what the framework for an initiation rite would be like. We knew the individual experiences that people in tribal cultures managed to get through that rite. And then we adapted that then to the 20th century.
Yeah.
Now we're in the 21st and we need it even more.